So welcome everyone. My name is Danielea Castell and I am the host of The Listening Field. The Listening Field is an online space that I host for humans and nature elders. And it's a ceremony space where we can connect and communicate in service to the healing and the thriving of Mother Earth and all her inhabitants. So I'm very excited to offer these monthly Zoom casts because more and more people are learning the value and the benefit of building personal relationships with who I call nature elders, or the wise ones, and they can take the form of trees or water or mountains, rivers, forests, lakes, stream, Mother Earth, fairy. More and more, we are opening our heart connections with these relatives. And I just love hearing about all the different ways that we do this, and each month have a guest for them to share with us their way of communicating and what happens when they partner with these nature elders. So this evening we have with us Elyse Pomeranz. And what I would like to do is to open with a great bowl and a little bit of sound. And then right off the bat, if you're ready, Elyse, I would love for you to offer a bit of sound into the space with a very special instrument that you have that is very related to our tree relatives. And then, of course, I invite you to say a little bit more about it as we move into the interview. So I'm just going to invite us all to just take a moment and close our eyes and center ourselves in the center of our own being, breathing and feeling what it means to be present in this moment, at this time, with each other on beloved Mother Earth.
This bowl is a sounding bowl made by Tobias Kay in England, and he was given instructions on how to make such instruments from trees that he was in communication with. This is made from a London plane tree, and it's what he calls a bridging bowl. You can see that the strings cross each other. So it works with taking polarity and opposition and bringing it to unity. And I take this with me outside with to the trees when I'm able to. Thank you.
So thank you. Let's just take another moment to just breathe and feel our kinship with our tree relatives, with the elders that we know. Connecting and feeling our own rootedness. The connections that our own branches make with each other, with our tree relatives, and the creatures who live therein. And also acknowledging and connecting with our ancestors and the cosmic ones. As we know, many of the tree relatives and the groups of tree elders are actually linking through their crowns off planet to the star nations, and of course with each other across Mother Earth. Ooh, I feel our field is very well populated with all our relatives tonight. So thank you to everyone who is here with us. So Elyse and I have really only just met. We were introduced to each other by Pam Turson, who is here on the call with us. And we've been discovering some amazing similarities that have come through different tree relatives and different tree processes, but in our mutual service to the tree elders, and in my case, the nature elders, the water, rock, and tree, is quite exciting to meet a sister and to hear about her path and her particular process. So Elyse has spent many years as a Waldorf teacher and is now also mentoring other Waldorf teachers, and is an artist. She lives currently in Algonquin Park. I'd love to hear a little bit about that as well. And through her relationship building with specific trees, she has received this way of communicating, these conversations with trees that involve drawing, intuitive drawing. So Elyse, I want to hear more about the practice, and we've got some beautiful slides to share with you, but I like to always go right back to the beginning with my guests and just say, what can you tell us about what was it like to be you as a child, with your particular gifts and your particular relationship with Mother Earth at that point in your life?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Danielea, for this wonderful work and for making a place for us to have these conversations together. I was very blessed as a child to go every summers to Cape Cod and to New Hampshire with my family. And when I was in New Hampshire, I was about 6 or 7 years old. I was by myself. I'm an only child. I was by myself, and I was having a very strong experience with this little pond or lake. And suddenly a very large black form creature, water snake, I'm not sure what, appeared and communicated with me and seemed to want to say, you belong to me, or we, we were made for each other. I don't know, something. And I was so taken aback. I wasn't sure exactly what had happened. I went running to my family, to my father in particular, and I think I tried to explain to him what had just happened. And he looked very concerned. He was a, Harvard MIT guy, very rigorous scientist. And he thought, oh dear, we've got to bring this into balance. So we traipsed off together to a nearby swamp, and he proceeded to find a very large bullfrog, and he scooped up the bullfrog, and it peed on him. And I was very distressed about that. I was distressed for the bullfrog, and I was distressed for him. It was a very distressing experience. He proceeded to take it back, and then he decided he was going to dissect it so he could teach me about life in the world. And he had me stick my finger, my little baby pinky finger, through the mouth once he had killed the frog, which I found horrifying. And he did it with such ease. That was really, I really wondered at that point, I started asking some questions. But he put his finger through the mouth and started to wiggle it so that it showed that it was connected to the stomach. He wanted to give me this idea that things are all linked together. And this was a sort of seed experience for me of the divergence, the separation of what we call science and what we call spirit. And I had this longing. I didn't feel there was a way for either side to have any interest or understanding in the other. And I think my life and one of my missions is to try to bring them into a loving harmony in a relationship. And my path has been to work with art as a form of communication, as a form of coming into communication with the non-sense perceptible, non-verbal world, so that then spirit and science can reunite. They were shattered during the age of the Enlightenment, art, science, and what was then religion, So that very early experience taught me that I wasn't going to be easily understood in my direct encounters with nature, and that science was currently quite brutal and cold and lacking in feeling. So that was a very powerful early experience that I had.
Wow. And
Yeah.
I'm understanding too from you how that has set you on your path. I think each of us here on this call could maybe look at an experience in our childhood and see how that has set us on the path that we find ourselves now with our nature relatives. I know for myself, I actually found it extremely difficult. I was a high-level empath and telepath and an incarnator. It was almost impossible for me to be in the human world. And so I literally escaped from the human world at every opportunity. I was born into a really large, very fractious family. And it was the, grandmother willow tree in the creek at the bottom of the street. And I always understood their language, and they always welcomed me. And I felt that they were really my family. So in my relations, I was seeking family, and my water, rock, and tree elders provided that for me. So this is really an interesting point to explore, I think, with other people. So share with us, how did the trees make themselves known to you? When did that focus begin for you?
I would say it first became conscious when I was living on Salt Spring Island in British Columbia. I was about 26 years old, and I was being given some teachings from some local Indigenous elders of how to be in the forest there. And I spent some time walking on the edge of the cliff where the trees and the rocks and the water, interestingly, are all the Trinity together. And there was one arbutus tree. Arbutus trees are extraordinary trees if you've never seen them. I think they're related to what are known as the madrones, or sometimes they're called a strawberry tree, but they have they're deciduous trees, but they are not like any other tree. They're very human in their forms, and in their bark has these different iterations, some of which are just pure red and peach, and when they are glistening in the rain, they really look like bodies, human bodies. They're really remarkable. And there was one that really invited me, and I sat there and found a really very special place to be. And the tree and I became friends. It was very natural. So that was, I would say, an early experience. And around the same time, I had a dream, a lucid dream with an orca. I was working very deeply with orcas at that time, in my inner work. And I followed this orca in my dream to the Queen Charlotte Islands, or Haida Gwaii. And I woke up from the dream and I said to my husband, honey, I think we have to go to Haida Gwaii. He's looking at me like, you've got to be kidding. I said, well, no, an orca told me that it's really important. So God bless him. He and our 1-year-old baby and a good friend of his, we all piled into our little VW Rabbit and head up to Haida Gwaii. And many, many things happened on that trip. But the one that was most astonishing for me was to be alone in an old growth forest and to have all the beings looking at me, watching me, asking me, what will you do? What will you become? Will you be trustworthy? Can we come to know each other? It was partly an invitation, partly a challenge, and it was just so clearly a real encounter. And that was when I was 26 also. So that was, I was quite young.
So
the tree conversation worked,
So
didn't
again,
actually come into being,
Yeah, again, this is very, very interesting because I lived on Salt Spring Island twice, and I know the arbutus trees very well. And it was during my my apprenticeship with the rainforest, and Haida Gwaii, as we discovered last night, was where I was called in 2008, and it was the Sitka spruce trees there who told me who I am. So there's just this incredible this weaving that is happening, and there's more and more to tell. So I want to ask you a question, because you've spoken several times saying, I just knew, the snake wanted to be your friend, or the tree wanted to be your friend. Tell me, is there anything that happens in your body when you have that communication, or is it simply like an intuitive knowing? You just know. I'm just curious how you would describe it.
I actually have to give my mother credit, because when I was a young child and I would perceive something and make a comment, she would affirm it. And it had a lot to do with my sensitivity around people. I could tell who was trustworthy and who wasn't, and I would very happily speak to that. And she took it with a great deal of respect and as something of importance and value. So I thank her for that. I also had a very strong communication with animals. And I suppose also because I was in a rather strange situation in my family. My mother had been quite ill, and my dear beloved father, with his MD and PhD, couldn't help her. So we went on a rather wild journey to visit with healers in different countries. And so I had, from a very early age, a very clear understanding of the reality of the spiritual world and of the sort of non-visible, invisible aspect of the human being, and was connected with those that had died. And, I all of this was just reality for me. So, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So yeah, take us now to the point when this tree conversation drawing began to emerge for you, and we have some slides when you're ready to share.
Yes,
so people can see.
Well, I've been very blessed in this life to spend time and learn with Marko Pogacnik, who is a UNESCO artist for peace and a great visionary. And he did a schooling in North America that I was able to participate in. And he was really training us to become more perceptive and more interested and communicative with the living earth and Gaia and all her multi-leveled beings and different aspects of reality. So I had worked with him for quite a few years, at the point at which a group of us were in New York City, actually at the Cloisters on the Hudson. And if you want to show the slide now, this would be a moment to do that. And he had us go up to the tree and to, so this is referring to the drawing on the left, to go up to the tree and do our practice of grounding and working with perceptions that were primarily oriented from the heart region. So we used our hearts as an organ of perception. And then we came back and we shared with each other what we had perceived. And it was a very strong experience. And at the time, Marco mentioned what he felt, or he called, a tree civilization that was linking itself from the cosmos, from the starry worlds to the earth through mature and ancient trees. And these trees were then dedicated to helping humanity in this time of great change. And when as soon as he said that, and my experience with the tree, it was a ginkgo tree, I was so moved, and it just I lit up, something in me lit up, and I thought I must align myself with that work. And the drawing on the left is from a time I had already started doing some of these drawings, and I went back to that tree, that original tree in the Cloisters, to have a tree conversation with that tree. And that was what the tree offered. And when I saw it, there were a number of things which have become noticeable in a number of the tree drawings over many, many years. But one thing that was particularly of interest was that coloration, that sort of rainbow quality of the colors ascending through the center. And I started to realize that coloring, the rainbow coloring, was a kind of a clue that I was in the presence of one of the trees that was actually active in this tree civilization service work to humanity. And I know that Elyse Novick, who I met and who then introduced me to Pamela, so a wonderful series of connectedness that has now brought me here to you through Pamela. She was working with this picture of a global tree network, and more I've heard people speak about this, many different people, of some kind of a real network of trees that are and a growing network of trees that are really interested in partnering with humanity. And one of the things which is, I think, most interesting of the many interesting things in this work is that through this experience, the tree is having a new experience. So the trees are not typically involved with creating a work of art. However, and they can't do that just unto themselves. So this partnership, this joining together of the human being, and in my case, I have hands, and the trees love to say, you don't understand what it means to have hands. I have hands, and I can, and my human heart and my listening capacities can partner with what the tree has as this very direct relationship to, I would call it instantaneous global thought. And so when we come together, and I am interested in what the tree would like me to do, and I go back and forth in the process. And after that's happened, it's a new experience. The tree hadn't ever had that experience before. And so the tree goes through a process of development. Something grows in its capacity. And if I continue the relationship over many years, let's say, that capacity even is strengthened and deepens and grows even further. And at one point I was in Ireland. It was pretty early in the process, because I've been doing this for about 10 years, but I was, I guess, maybe only a year into the process or two. I went to introduce myself to a tree. I always introduce myself, I always ask permission, and I have been denied permission a number of times. So it's very important as in any relationship, that there is a willingness on all parties for, on all sides. But I went to introduce myself and explain who I was, and the tree said, well, we don't have that much time. I know about you. I was expecting you, and, let's just do the drawing. At which point I thought, aha, somehow the trees are conveying this to other trees. And at first, when that happened on the first property where I was just developing the process, I thought, oh, that's charming. The local trees are sharing this with each other somehow. But when it happened at this great distance, when I was in Ireland, that the tree somehow knew already of the process and knew that I was coming, that awoke in me some sense of this as a very powerful, unifying, whole-making global work.
Beautiful. What can you tell us about this drawing on the right? Where did what tree did you co-create that with?
So this is another very significant tree. In fact, ultimately this tree was arranged it so that I could live in proximity to him. This tree is a white cedar growing out of the side of a limestone cliff on the Bruce Peninsula, on actually what's known as the Bruce Trail. The tree, when you are on the trail, looks very uninteresting, if I could say that. It's not a very kind thing to say, but it looks just like some little tree, like all the other cedar trees. But as I was coming close towards that area where that tree is, I was told that I wasn't allowed to actually go straight to that tree. I had to sit with a tree that was actually near that one and was a kind of guardian of that tree. So I obeyed. I very much listen to what I'm asked. And then I was given permission to go and meet this tree. And this was my first drawing with this tree. As it turns out, the tree was really showing me how it was presencing an extremely high spiritual being and working at a very, very, very significant level of guiding the processes of that area. And this tree did actually become a very important teacher of mine. And the little film that was made shows my relationship with that tree and some of the drawings that the tree shared with me over many, many years. But that was the story behind this particular drawing. So this was the first drawing with that tree.
Beautiful, beautiful. I'm curious. I'm a sound weaver. So when I'm in this co-creative field with my tree elders or water elders, I receive music. I receive melodies, and in fact, my Thank You Water CD is all of those. That music came through these ceremonial dialogues, as I would call them. So I'm other than a visual artist, and so I'm curious. Would you say that do you see it in your third eye and then you draw that with your hands, or is it direct to your hand and the paper?
That's such a wonderful question. Thank you. So this is genuinely a conversation. And I introduce myself to the tree, obviously ask permission and all of those things. And then when I sit down, I ask the tree, sometimes I have a question. Sometimes I just ask what the tree would like to show or express. And then I just ask, what now? And I will go towards the color or the shape or make a field of color, whatever is now. And then I will leave that and ask, oh, and now is there something next? So I am not seeing the image as a wholeness. It is arising through the exchange. And this is why actually I did make that little film, because I had promised a yew tree in England in Raysbury called the Anchorwood yew, which is the tree under which the Magna Carta was signed. I had promised that tree to show visually how the images develop. And 7 years later, I finally did it with that little film where you can see some of the images actually growing on the page, and Trees felt that was important to show. So it's not that I am trying to draw something. I am listening and communicating through the color and the line. And it can take some time. It can take up to an hour or 2 hours.
Beautiful. Thank you. And for those who are watching and those who are here in the Zoom room, I just put Elise's website in the chat. Excuse me. It's thetreeconversations.com. So there's lots and lots of beautiful information and videos and drawings that are on there. So I'll put that link again and mention it before we leave, but it's thetreeconversations.com. So I'd like, if you're willing, I'd love for you to speak to the next slide where there's, I think you were in Thunder Bay. I think you were in Thunder Bay,
yes,
and
Canada.
something happened in the community. And so I'm gonna,
Mhm.
shall I share screen
Yeah.
now, or would you like to say something
Please.
before I share? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, let me just advance the, yeah. Sorry. Excuse me. Whoops. There we go.
All right. So the drawings actually are very small, and I can see a very large image with you saying, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm stepping up,
Oh
I'm
dear.
climate.
Sorry about, hang on 1 second. Sorry about that, everyone. I thought I was.
While you're doing that, maybe I will give a little background. I had been invited to Thunder Bay. There we go. I had been invited to Thunder Bay initially to support someone who was trying to get a Waldorf school initiative going. And I came there, and we had many workshops planned, and I was there, and nobody came to these workshops, and it was very surprising. And I said, well, maybe there's some other reason why I'm meant to be here. Maybe we're supposed to do this tree work together. So a little bit hesitantly, my host agreed to come with me to this willow tree that she had done some nature observation with down by the river in Thunder Bay. And we sat together with this tree, and it was that picture that you can see on the far right was the first experience I had with that tree. Very powerful and very clearly connected to the Indigenous culture of that region. And also at the same time, something new was arising, something was forming itself. It wasn't a traditional kind of medicine wheel image that came through. It had some kind of a new, something was being asked that was new. And her drawing was also astonishing. So clearly that was what needed to happen. And I offered to do a workshop there then on the tree conversation work. And suddenly we had 12 people in about 10 minutes. We had a wonderful workshop there on the tree work. And I was coming back and forth there, working with her and working with an Indigenous community up 7 hours north of Thunder Bay called Slate Falls, doing some teacher training up there. So I was going up there quite regularly. And when I came back to my home in Toronto, there was a lot on the news about a really horrific ongoing problem in the area where young teenagers, young Indigenous children were being found drowned in the river. And it was very controversial. It had been going on for a long time. And I heard that willow tree say to me, I know what's happened. Next time you come, before you go up north further, come straight to me. So I did that. And on the left is an image of the tree showing me its witnessing of one of these events. And when I saw it, there were a number of things that came through, and I wasn't sure what to do. So I brought it to the tree conversation workshop that I was offering at the time. And I showed the drawing and I said, what can I do with this? Does anyone have any suggestions? And they said, oh, you must meet this woman named Cindy Crow at the Blue Sky Healing Community Center. She'll know what to do. And so out of that relationship, 3 events that were called Tree Speak were created by Cindy to try to address this question of what the trees were showing as a guiding light, if you like, towards how to resolve this problem and how to actually find out what has really taken place. So that drawing then in the middle was a drawing gifted to me by that same willow tree. And it was showing me the need for circles, certain kinds of circles to be held for men in the community. And in fact, Cindy Crow did go on to create a lot of amazing work with men in prison that I'm sure is contributing to a gradual opening up and deepening of the understanding of what has made this possible, why this is happening. And then we actually did the Tree Speak workshops with this willow tree. So we gathered quite a few of us and did the tree conversation drawing work. It was a mixture of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people doing the work. It was very potent. And it's very interesting that you chose these yourself, Danielea, because they are, I think, powerful. And I guess what I would say is that, the trees offer us solace and friendship, companionship, inspiration. They help us, but they also know what is needed. And they can help us in our human distress and in our human, when we're entangled to such a degree that we can't have a new thought about a situation. And in Canada, the relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities has a tremendous entanglement of so much trauma and mutual distrust. And the trees really are an incredible gateway to what we would like to think of as truth and reconciliation, what we're trying to do. And I feel the trees can really be part of that and contribute to that. So that was a little drop in the ocean, that whole experience, but it still was maybe the beginning of something that could continue. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. My mind is really, ever since I saw this on your website and read what it was about, yeah, it's still speaking to me. I will share that in the early years of my apprenticeship with trees, I was going each year to do a pilgrimage with the tree elders in Carmana Walbran. And this was following my initiation with the Sitka spruce trees that were on Haida Gwaii. Right after I was there for a month. And after I left, I found out that on the western side of Vancouver Island, much south from where I am right now, is the largest stand of old growth Sitka spruce. And so here it was right on my own island. And so I would go every year and I would camp in the parking lot and then go down every day down into the valley. And I had my grandmother there and the 3 sisters are there. And, they really taught me how to sit still and how to listen with my heart. But one of the things that happened is that when we were driving in, there was a huge clear cut that called to me on the way in the very first year that I went in. And I made a mental note to stop on the way back. And my friend who I was there with reminded me as we were leaving after the pilgrimage and said, do you want to stop here at the clear cut? And I said, yes, thank you for reminding me. And it was incredibly painful. I didn't know then, but when they do what they call a winter cut, they did a winter clear cut. When the snow is really high, they cut kind of very, very high up. And so it literally was a graveyard of tree relatives. And I was actually literally just a week away from a total hip replacement surgery. So I was actually on a cane and I climbed up through this place up into I found a place there and took my drum up there and began to drum and to drop in, and they showed me what they looked like before they were cut. And I began to sound weave and sing out in, this joy of how they used to be. And then they showed me the day the machines came and that they were cut, and it was horrendous. And the sound, of course, changed to reflect that. But I didn't stay long and wasn't guided to stay long in that tragedy, and went right through in the sounding and in the visioning into seeing this time when humans and the trees were going to rise up and to co-create together. And so I'm sharing this because it really helped me understand the value of witnessing, why it is so important for us to witness what we have done with a breathing heart, right? Because it's easy to turn away from things like that because they're painful and they make us angry and grief, etc. But they really showed me how valuable it is for us to be able to witness, which I later did with the tar sands and other places. It's part of my path to go and witness what we have done. So what I really love about what you have shared is it really demonstrates for us that they consciously witness what happens in our world. And then, as you've shared with the drawings and their messages you receive from the willow, that their witnessing can also provide pathways and opportunities that we can't see because of where we are in our particular place. So yeah, thank you for helping to show that the other side of witnessing. So I wanted to move now to something that I think I read on your website, and it's something that's come up for those of you who are new to my work in the listening field. It's, humans are in the field, they're talking one-on-one with the nature elders they've called in. And it's part of my mission to not only provide the space for the elders' voice to be heard and their wisdom to be heard, but also to share that wisdom. And so I've been making these visual memes that bring these messages from the elders and put them on these images. And part of what we've been doing in 2022 is holding sessions where we unpack those messages, because it's one thing to receive the wisdom from the elders, then it's to unpack it and apply it in our lives or in our worlds. And so I wondered if you could speak a little bit about the challenges maybe that you have encountered of bringing images through and maybe not quite understanding what they mean. Does that happen, that you have images that you don't quite understand?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think in the slideshow there's an example. But absolutely, yes. And on some level, they're all like that. They are continually revealing to me as I grow in my capacity to listen. And also sometimes I will be given the opportunity to be shown the meaning of them at a later time, without my necessarily seeking it out. I can think of a great example, but I don't think I have the drawings there in the slideshow for you to see. And in fact, I remember being asked, what's the point of doing these drawings if you don't know what they mean? And in fact, it can be a little bit hard to talk about that. But actually, the kinds of communication that are perhaps most meaningful and powerful are often things that we don't necessarily fully understand. And sometimes it can take a lifetime to understand something. I once had a dream where my grandfather came to me and I was trying to explain to him this work, actually. And he looked at me and said, in one lifetime, you can only understand so much, which was very cute. But he was loving me anyway, even though he had no idea what I was talking about. so part of this work, and I think what's really, one of the things that's really important about this work is that I'm willing to continue it without needing to cling to a clear understanding at this time. And that's a very uncomfortable place to be honest. And there have been a number of times as I've been doing the work, I've been thinking to myself, am I crazy? What am I doing this for? And then a little something will come up. Like at one point I was thinking, I'm going all over the world. I don't have a place to live. I've got this backpack with this paper and these pencils in it, and I'm sitting with trees all over the world. And I like, what is wrong with me? And then I had this image come to me that the Buddha was given his gift of enlightenment through his relationship with a tree. And I thought, that's right. Oh, yes. Okay, I'm in good company. At least the Buddha would understand me. So there've been little moments like that that are encouraging and supportive to go forward. And there have been moments where I have been shown exactly what something means. And maybe I will share this. It's a little shocking maybe, but I think I'll take the risk tonight to share it. My father, who I mentioned, my beloved father, the Harvard MIT man, the scientist, he was very, very ill, and I wanted to give him a gift. So he actually always did his writing under a tree. He always had a special tree, my father. And he was very protective of that tree and very connected to that tree. So he had a special tree in his home, a maple tree. And I thought for his 75th birthday, I would do a drawing with his tree as a gift for him. So I sat with the tree and I did this drawing, and it was a very uncomfortable image. There was somebody trapped in the tree and something wasn't quite right. And we both looked at this drawing, and he said, well, I don't know. And I said, well, I don't know. And I thought that I just felt very uneasy about it. And then I said to myself, I'm never, ever going to do another drawing that's kind of like to, show something, to illustrate something, or to demonstrate something, because I felt that was maybe the wrong motivation, right? Well, 6 months later, my father died, and the way he died had been shown in the drawing, exactly the means of his death and how it occurred. And so when I was clearing out his belongings, I found the original drawing again. And it was, again, just a reminder. And it's true, there were two things about it that were important. One was, it is really not a good idea in general to be trying to do this as a kind of demonstration or to prove something or to need some kind of an agreement. But what that drawing did teach me was the tree knew exactly what was going to be occurring in advance, 6 months in advance. And that also was a key to me that I was to continue the work. It was important, even though I didn't completely understand all of it at this time. So I hope that wasn't too shocking an example, but
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I really echo, I mean, the whole decade of apprenticeship that I did, I had no idea why I was forming heart bonds with more than 50 bodies of waters and trees and mountains around the world. I had no idea. And then it became clear in 2019, and then even clearer in 2020 when COVID hit. And then that was the birth of the listening field. So, I think trust is foundational in these relations and in nature communication, because it's the foundation of human relations as well. So we have a couple of moments that always like to open up the mic for anyone who has comments or questions. I know Pam has mentioned that she has some, and then if you do, please just raise your digital hand and I'll call on you. So Pam.
It's so great to hear this conversation, a dream come true. I have two questions. Maybe you can choose. One is, You were talking, Elyse, about how, you know, you don't know the meaning of the drawings necessarily when you do them, but I remember a while back you laid out many of the drawings and took an overview of the work that you had done over the course of like 7 to 10 years, and you started to see some patterns. And I was wondering if you could speak to that.
Yes, thank you. You know, it's a little bit awkward. I have 900 drawings, and I've been more or less, you know, living out of storage and in these temporary places. And I feel I still haven't had the chance to really fully witness and see what's there. But at one point I decided, I thought, well, I'll just try to make little tiny versions of the drawings, and then I'll put them in consecutive order to when I, you know, 2013 to 2020 or whatever, with a particular type of tree, let's say the beech trees. And as I did that, I saw that each drawing was somehow catching something from the wave of the previous one, even if it was one drawing was in Ireland and the next one was in China, and they could have sometimes been 2 or 3 years apart. So as if there was this kind of, speaking of beech, that was a global beech work. And there it was showing itself to me over many, many years from many different trees in different countries. And that I found really, really interesting. I haven't completely unpacked that. I would love, and I'm hoping someone's helping me now to scan the images, to start to work with them a little bit more, to get a sense of them as language with certain forms and certain colors and certain things that maybe are speaking in a way that I haven't yet been able to completely observe, because I can't actually look at it. You know, when I'm doing these drawings, 900 drawings later, like I'm not remembering certain things at certain times when I'm drawing. I'm just present with that tree. And then I look back and I see these very powerful patterns and rhythms. So, you know, I'm still in the mystery of it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Ellen, and then Amanda. You're still
you're muted, dear
Unmute.
Ellen.
You're still muted.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, how about here? Can you hear me now?
Oh, perfect.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, you were first called up by the orcas. And ever since I started sitting with the redwoods, I've been feeling the whales. And so I'm very curious. I've been kind of fascinated in exploring that relationship, but it's very mysterious to me. And I wondered if you had anything to add to that. Thanks.
Yeah, beautiful. Where I was living on my first place I was living on Salt Spring Island, orca pods would come and swim right into the little inlet where our house was at the time. And I had worked originally, I don't know if you know the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, Michael Harner's work, but I had been involved in that in my early 30s. And orca was one of the animals that showed itself to me as one of the beings I was working with. So, you know, my time on the West Coast on Salt Spring Island, and also my beloved Hornby Island for a period, I was very in touch with those beings as teachers. Other than that, I'm afraid I can't speak too much to it. There are entire communities of people who are working deeply in communication with the whales and with the orcas, and that is another civilization as part of the Earth civilization. And yes, I think as Danielea was saying, you know, water and trees and stones and rocks are all very important to each other In fact, the drawing work I started with the Mineral Kingdom, going and sitting with mineral specimens every day for several months at the Royal Ontario Museum. And I tried to draw their inner activity, and there was so much activity, it couldn't be drawn. And I thought, well, this isn't going to work very well. And then from there, I started working with the bees and doing drawings that the bees were guiding me to. And the bees told me I wasn't permitted to share them. So that was somewhat disappointing. And they sent me off and in the direction of the trees. And the trees seemed very happy to be part of this research. And it seemed possible to draw something of that exchange. Whereas with the Mineral Kingdom, the inner life of the minerals is so continuously flowing and changing, it wasn't possible. But that's just to say, you know, there's the water and the water beings, and these are very important. I'm just starting now to form relationships with the water where I'm living. There's a lake nearby that I've developed a very deep bond with.
Thank you.
But I can't say anything more. I know, Ellen, you will find your way, and the whales will find their way with you as well.
I think there's definitely a connection. There's definitely a connection. So Amanda, we just have a couple of minutes left. So Amanda, I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, we can't hear you, dear Amanda. You're muted. No, we still can't hear you.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. So I just wanted to say this is really wonderful. And hello, Elyse. I'm on Hornby Island where I met Elyse in about 1990, and we've been very close friends ever since. And I'm just thrilled to hear you speaking about the trees, because, you know, the maple and the willow, you know, the ones you spoke about, they're witnesses. They're witnesses, and they have knowledge. And if everybody could wake up, or enough people wake up to recognize what communication and power we have with animals and trees and, you know, the mountains, the ocean, everything. So that's, you know, that's what I'm going to leave with today. And as a question, I just wanted to say that I so appreciated how you acknowledged your mother, because I've met your mother, you know, and she's a woman who's just really out there. And I wonder what would have happened if you had not had somebody close in your life who recognized your own abilities and your ability to be out there. Because that happens to so many children who are not heard.
Yes, I definitely had the parents that were mine to have the brilliant scientists, and my mother was actually an artist. So beauty and art were very important to her. And so there I was in the middle. And yes, I have to thank them both very, very deeply for the possibility that this could grow in my life. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Elyse, for taking the time to share with us. I also wanted to take this opportunity to invite you to check out the 7daysofrest.org. This was, they host, this is an annual event. And of course, the listening field participated in this. We opened a field every day with nature elders on the themes for that day. And there's videos up on my YouTube channel, and I'm still editing more for what came through. But one of the reasons I'm inviting you to look at the 7daysofrest.org is because there's a page there. It's called a gateway, and it's called All Our Kin. And so there's incredible a wide array of nature relatives, from fairy to mineral, tree, water, like all different, representing such diversity of people who are communicating with these wise ones. So I really recommend that you go to the 7daysofrest.org. I also wanted to let you know that I don't have a guest yet for next month. So it's always the last Thursday of the month. So that will be happening. There will be one in February. I'm not sure yet who it is. And then I just wanted to invite you to just subscribe to my YouTube channel It's under Danielea Castell. And there you will see a playlist for the previous guests that have been on Adventures in ecoRelations, as well as I say, you're going to see little short video clips from the listening fields. Some of them are messages from climate, from biodiversity, from the web of life. And there'll be more coming. If you'd like to join my email list, I will put my website into the chat. You'll see at the very top of the page where you can join the email list. There's lots more coming. I'm still in listening as to what this year, what the nature elders are asking me to do this year. But I'll just put the listening field.life into the chat. And then also, again, Elyse's website is the treeconversations.com, where you can read more about her work. So thank you, everyone. We are at 6:31. I'm going to stop the live stream here, and